Hey guys, thanks for swinging by cooking on the weekend. My name is Steve, and today I'm going to be talking to you all about something that's a little bit different: sous vide bone broth. And I say this is going to be something that's going to be a little bit different. Part of the reason I say that is because I searched all over the internet and I couldn't find anybody else doing this. I'm sure there's someone else out there that has had the same idea I have, but as far as finding forums or discussions, best practices, I haven't been able to find anything on the bone broth. Lots of stuff about sous vide bone marrow, not much about the broth. So I am going to do a little experiment. Well, actually, I've already done the experiment, but I will share with you a little bit about that experiment. Anyways, I had a couple ham bones in the freezer, so that's what I'm going to be working with. And as you can see in the picture I have up here, this is the finished product from a combination of using sous vide and a crock pot as well. The initial thing that drove me to wanting to do this experiment was trying to find a way to be able to save some wonderful broth without having to take up a ton of space in the freezer. Now, traditionally, I would make about a gallon of soup, or excuse me, bone broth from a couple bones. I would then mix up the ingredients for whatever soup I was going to make, typically a potato soup. And from those couple bones, I'd end up having about 2 gallons worth of stuff, split up between quart bags, maybe 1 gallon bag. But I'd end up having like 2 gallons worth of soup taking up space in the freezer. So that's just not a real practical thing right now, considering everything going on with the health crisis. I don't want to shop as much. When I do buy meat, I want to stock up a bit more. There's just not a lot of space. Also, not a lot of space for saving bones for that rainy day when I want to make some soup. So I had to come up with a new method, and I love working with sous vide. This just seemed like a natural thing to try. So a few times a year, I'll pick up a spiral ham for lunch meat and a variety of other things, and I always save the bone. So fortunately, I had 2 bones in the freezer, and that's what I used for this experiment. So as you can see in the picture here, I've got 2 bags with 2 ham bones. Now these were cooked in the sous vide for 30 hours at 131 degrees. The reason I picked that time and that temperature was because I was actually cooking a roast. That's how long I usually do my roast, 30 hours, 131 degrees. So I actually just threw these bags along with the roast when I was doing that cook. And I got to tell you, the results were amazing. Not only was I able to successfully make a great concentrated homemade bone broth, but I had a couple unexpected surprises as well. The first one involved um, the usable meat that I was able to collect off the bones. As you can see in this picture here, it's not the most appetizing looking image, but I promise you, this is something that's pretty cool. So typically with your traditional methods of making bone broth, they're going to be cooking 12 to 16 hours, and whatever meat was left on that bone is going to be shredded. In my experience, most of it just ends up in the garbage can along with the bones, and that's definitely not the case here. So this is surprise number one. Not only was the meat easy to collect, the little bits of fat and connective tissues that were with it were easy to remove, but it was also completely saturated with the concentrated flavor. So this is more or less bone broth concentrated mixed with meat. So I can make a whole entire batch of soup with just the few ounces I collected here and not even touch the other concentrate that I'm working on. Also, if I wanted to, I could throw it into a saucepan, allow the fat to crisp up the meat, maybe use it for a roux, for a cheese sauce, for a pasta dish. I don't know. There's a ton of things I could do with this. So that was definitely a great little surprise. So I did save this separate from everything else, and I'm looking forward to using that in a future meal. So on to making the concentrated bone broth. So we already have a leg up, in the process. The marrow is, while not liquefied, it's already pretty much gelatin. There's a lot of concentrated flavor already in the juices that were poured into the crock pot along with the bones. And it's not going to take as much time to draw out the flavors into the broth as it would in the traditional method. I mean, a lot of the cooking has already been done. I wanted to do this with the least amount of water possible, so I started off with 4 cups. Now, that was proportionate to the size of my crock pot. I just kind of wanted to cover the bones. Depending on the size of the pot you're using, maybe it's going to be 3 cups, maybe it's going to be 5 cups. To be honest, this is going to be something in future experiments I'm going to be working with and tweaking a little bit to find out what's best for me. So I did cook it with about 4 cups. I added another cup later after some of the evaporation occurred. And I cooked it for about 6 hours. About half that time on high, about half that time on low. I actually kind of went back and forth a little bit through the process. But after that period of time was done, I went ahead and just poured off the juices. And then I had an idea that I'm going to kind of refer to as unexpected surprise number 2. So surprise number 2 was realizing that I actually was able to create a bit more bone broth for the remaining bones, something I didn't expect to happen, but I just wanted to try it. I figure, I still have the bones, they're in the crock pot, why not add a little bit more water, a little salt. By the way, this is the first time I had salt, was in this last step. I didn't use it in the previous steps because with the ham bone and the meat that was on there, there was already plenty of sodium. It wasn't necessary. But for this part, I did add a little bit of salt. I had probably about 4 cups, 5 cups of water, and I just cooked it overnight to see if there was anything else left that I could draw out. And sure enough, I did. It was enough for me to make about 5 healthy bowls of soup. So I did add in a little bit of flour to it the next day, thicken it up a little bit, added some potatoes, a ham, some cheese, and it was a delicious meal. So there was a little instant gratification there. Not only do I have the concentrated broth for the future, not only do I have the ham bits for whatever kind of meal I wanted to make, I was also able to make a nice small batch of soup for using right away. So back to the concentrated bone broth. I did have another idea on how to best preserve that in the freezer. So instead of just pouring the liquids in the bag and doing a vacuum seal, I went ahead and froze the contents of the broth in the bag before I sealed it. As you can see, you got a nice separation between the fat and the broth, and I decided to preserve them both together. So in the future, when I'm getting ready to make this soup, I'm also going to likely have a plan of something to do with some of that fat. Likely use it as a butter substitute, making some homemade bread or rolls. Sometimes I like to use the fat from different meats I've collected for things like making pizza crust, a wide variety of things. I may even try making a roux and making the cheese sauce and adding that directly to the stock and the potatoes. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure 100% what I'm going to do with it, but it's nice to have it there, and there'll be a wide variety of things I can do with it. So this is definitely going to be the first of many experiments. I'm really, really happy with these results. And I'm going to try a few different things. I'll be trying different times and temperatures. I'll try things with braised bones, smoked bones. I'll likely do this with beef bones, maybe pork bones. I may even do chicken. Now, for chicken, because of the small things that could puncture a bag, maybe process them or throw them in the food process, break them down a little bit. But long story short, though, I'm going to probably be doing several more experiments. But as far as experiment 1 went, I couldn't be happier. So I definitely recommend giving this a try. So before closing out this video, I did want to throw out one additional tip. Regardless what your recipe is for making your favorite potato soup, I recommend trying one additional thing. Roasting up some delicious potatoes and then pouring your soup base over it. Oh my God, it's amazing. I definitely recommend trying it. I'm confident you'll love it. And just want to thank you all for swinging by cooking on the weekend. And I hope you guys have a terrific day. Take care.